investigating road fatality in Newtown on Thursday. Guyana government increased penalties for sex offenders, and COVID-19 reportedly killing 1,000 per day in Europe. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, October 16th, 2020. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders, nationally. The police are investigating a road fatality that occurred on Thursday afternoon. According to reports, the accident involved a motorbike and a pedestrian. ZIZ understands that a pedestrian was struck on a crosswalk near the Newtown area. The police confirmed that the unidentified male died as a result of the incident. The details are still unclear, but we will provide an update in a subsequent newscast. In other news, a man is in police custody in relation to a firearm that was found in the Newtown area on Wednesday, October 14, 2020. According to reports, members of the Anti-Narcotics Unit executed a search on a premises in Catty Alley, Newtown on Wednesday. As a result, one Glock 19 firearm with a matching magazine and 4 9mm rounds of ammunition were found. The items were taken into custody along with an individual who lives on the premises. Investigations into the matter are ongoing. This find brings the total number of illegal firearms taken off the streets to 8. In other local news, the High Court has dismissed legal claims made by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party against the Team Unity government and the state-owned media ZIZ Broadcasting. The court case was filed by the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party to the High Court on May 27, 2020, through its representatives, the Honourable Conris Maynard, the Honourable Marcella Liburd, and the Right Honourable Dr. Denzel Douglas against the Attorney General and ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, ZBC. In their claim, the SKNLP declared that the state of emergency resolutions published by the government on 18th April and 13th May 2020 were, quote, unconstitutional, null, void, and of no effect. Additionally, the SKNLP asked the court to declare that the COVID-19 emergency regulations published by the government on the 8th May were unlawful, disproportionately restrictive, and discriminatory against the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party and its supporters. Court documents also accused the police of suppressing the members of the opposition during a period of political campaigning pre-election. However, in his statement, Attorney General Honorable Vincent Byron Jr. spoke of the court's ruling with regards to the current state of emergency. He advised that His Lordship Mr. Justice Trevor Ward QC not only dismissed the opposition's claims about the state of emergency being unconstitutional, null, void, and of no effect, but also ruled that the resolution will remain in place until the end of the 6-month period.
The effect of the ruling this morning, Mr. Speaker, is that the state of emergency has been and remains in place. As regards the implementation of the emergency regulations, the learned judge found that the police took an even-handed approach to the implementation of the emergency regulations. He found that the evidence put forward did not establish discrimination on the part of the police against the claimants.
The Attorney General reminded that Sunday, October 18th, is the expiration of the 6-month state of emergency currently in place, and noted that the borders will, however, be reopened on Saturday, October 31st, 2020. The SKN Labour Party accused ZIZ Broadcasting of discriminating against the SKN Labour Party, noting that it has been violating its rights to equality, freedom of speech and expression. However, ahead of the June 2020 general election, ZIZ did in fact provide equal, free and paid airtime to all candidates and all political parties. Attorney General Byron said with regards to the court's ruling on that, the judge stated that the equal access policy put forward by the state-owned media was late in implementation and should have been in effect as of the dissolution of Parliament on 12 May 2020. Justice Trevor Ward QC also dismissed the claims for damages and costs by the opposition's legal representation and ruled that each party must pay their own costs. We now move on to news on the regional scene. In Guyana, the Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Vindia Persad, is urging Guyanese to utilize the scholarships available through the government to pursue careers in the field of psychology to bridge the gap. Amel Griffith of HGP TV News reports.
Despite a growing need for mental health care for children and teenagers, there is a deficit in child psychiatrists, according to the Minister of Human Services and Social Security, Vindia Persad. Against this backdrop, she is encouraging Guyanese to work towards improving the overall mental health services provided to the populace. She believes one way this could happen is if more Guyanese utilize the government scholarships to further their education in this field.
We don't have enough people dealing with children and children issues, getting them trained, encouraging people to apply for scholarships, encouraging people to study in these areas so that they can come back and serve the public sector, because these are areas that have been starved previously, and we know that without that psychosocial element, we're not really achieving the impact we want to have.
The minister noted that without the psychosocial element, the efforts of the government to eradicate issues like abuse and crime would be futile. Her calls come against the backdrop of the high incidences of child abuse in its various forms countrywide. In 2020, the minister confirmed that while the number of abuse cases is slightly lower than in 2019, underreporting is at play since the main avenues where reports are made, such as schools, remain closed due to COVID-19 restrictions. The minister disclosed that her ministry will be targeting child abuse, specifically those of sexual nature, in a very stringent and focused way. She noted that they are mulling the decision to increase penalties in an effort to reduce such incidences.
We have seen the worst form of abuse carried out on children from 0 to 3 years old, and we're looking at the legislation and policy on how to deal with those things, looking at maybe advocating stiffer penalties. This would be collaborative, but yes, I think it is the worst thing that you can do to a child.
The minister pleaded with the public to report any incidents of abuse to the relevant authorities, since this is the only way that help can be rendered to the victims. She added that to help in the process of children reporting their stories, by next year, there will be child advocacy centers established in all administrative regions. Meanwhile, touching on the issue of street children, the subject minister stated that the parents will be held accountable. She stated that when the children are caught, the parents can face the full brunt of the law, resulting in their children being institutionalized. For the HGP Nightly News, Amel Griffith.
2 Jamaica Defense Force or JDF soldiers were arrested in connection with the seizure of approximately 1,500 pounds of marijuana in gutters in St. Elizabeth on Tuesday. This after they engaged in a gun battle with a police team and Jamaica's Defense Force members. Here's more in this CVM News report.
A minivan, property of the Jamaica Defense Force, riddled with bullet holes. The result of a shootout between 2 members of the JDF and a police team comprising members of the Narcotics Division and the Westmoreland Division, boosted by JDF members. Head of the Jamaica Constabulary Forces Corporate Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, tells CVM Live the incident stems from an attempt by the team to intercept the vehicle, which was transporting over 1,500 pounds of marijuana.
We can confirm that 2 members of the Jamaica Defense Force are currently in custody, stemming from an operation that was carried out earlier. Well, it was actually last night by members of the police force. It was an intelligence-led operation, as we understand it. And it was during that time that they reportedly signaled a bus to stop. However, the driver disobeyed. They went in pursuit of the vehicle. In the end, shots were fired at the police vehicle, causing damage to the vehicle, and the bus, which was later found to be registered to the JDF.
She adds that there haven't been any reports of injuries. The question is, could the incident cause tension between members of the JCF and the JDF?
I don't see this by itself causing any tension between the JCF and the JDF members, because I think we have been signaling, the leadership of both organizations has been signaling from some time and demonstrating through action that there's really no room for wrongdoing. I know for the JCF, as we go through our process of transformation, we're transferring to be a force for good.
Furthermore, SSP Lindsay doesn't believe this occurrence should be seen in a negative light.
We don't see what happened as an overall reflection of what happens every day. It's really an out of something that we don't see normally. So I think that the public should really view that. They should be very satisfied that we are policing ourselves to some extent, and where there's a breach of law, it doesn't matter who commits that breach. So it's treated just like how the breaches are treated.
Aladdin Love for CVM Live.
On the international scene, coronavirus cases in France have gone up by nearly a third in just one day. Al Jazeera's Charlie Angela reports from London.
This city of 9 million is moving into high alert, tier 2 of a 3-tier system, meaning no one can meet indoors with anyone outside their household. It's the government's latest attempt to rein in a runaway infection rate, which is doubling every 10 days.
We must act now. Delayed action means more deaths from COVID, it means more non-COVID deaths, and it means more economic pain later, because the virus comes down slower than it goes up.
But there are questions over whether this goes far enough, with the opposition and many scientists instead advocating a short, sharp, nationwide lockdown, not just regional restrictions.
Here in London, the new measures will impact 3,000 pubs and 7,000 restaurants. The decision will be reviewed every 2 weeks, but most of these businesses have already made their orders for the month ahead, and this stopping and starting could cripple them. But many in Europe find they're in a similar situation.
France has declared a public health state of emergency and imposed an 8 p.m. curfew on Paris and 8 other cities. Hospital admissions are at their highest levels since June.
The curve has nearly taken a vertical shape, and that's why we knew we needed to act, because this reality will have an impact on hospitals 10 days later, with a very strong impact on intensive care units.
Infection rates are also rising in Spain. The region of Catalonia is closing all bars and restaurants for 15 days and limiting the number of people allowed in shops in its attempt to curb the surge. Germany, Czech Republic, Italy and Poland are all looking at a record number of daily cases since the pandemic began. And from the World Health Organization, a bleak warning that governments mustn't shy away from nationwide lockdowns.
Projections from reliable epidemiological models are not so optimistic. These models indicate that prolonged relaxing policies could propel, by January 2021, daily mortality at levels 4 to 5 times higher than what we recorded in April.
COVID-19 is now killing 1,000 people a day in Europe. With winter fast approaching, this exponential increase is everyone's concern. Charlie Angela, Al Jazeera, London.
The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted an EU summit in Brussels. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen abruptly left the talks on Brexit after discovering she had been in contact with a COVID-19 infected person. Al Jazeera's Natasha Butler reports.
A deal, but not at any price. The message to Britain from EU leaders in Brussels.
On Brexit, we are united and determined to reach an agreement, but not at any cost. Any agreement on our future relationship would have to be based on our mandate, in particular when it comes to the level playing field, fisheries and governance.
Fishing is one of the most divisive issues in the trade negotiations. For decades, fishermen in the UK and EU have shared waters. But the UK says it now wants to control access to its seas. The EU says that would destroy its coastal communities.
In no circumstances will our fishermen be sacrificed to Brexit. It's a choice made by the British people, so preserving access to British waters for our fishermen, finding a good compromise for our fishermen, and I'm talking for all of the countries in Europe who are concerned, including France, is an important point in these discussions for us.
The EU's Brexit negotiator said compromise was possible on fishing and other issues, but more time was needed. The UK said it will issue a formal response on Friday, making it unclear whether it will take up the EU's offer of a new round of talks next week.
The UK is a totally sovereign country and we respect this, just as the UK must respect our own autonomy. I think that between the parties, the UK and the EU, that have autonomy and sovereignty, in a respectable fashion we can build a framework of transparency and trade.
The summit talks on Brexit were briefer than usual, perhaps because the focus was elsewhere. Several EU countries are battling a second wave of coronavirus, reflected unexpectedly by the abrupt departure from the meeting of the EU Commission chief. I have just been informed that a member of my front office has tested positive to COVID-19 this morning. I myself have tested negative. However, as a precaution, I'm immediately leaving the European Council to go into self-isolation. The pandemic has battered the bloc's economy and the health crisis is clearly far from over. EU leaders will be all too aware that should they fail to agree on a deal with the UK before the December 31st deadline, the economic turmoil will only get worse. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
And now for the weather. Present weather is cloudy. A gentle breeze of 9 miles per hour is moving from the east-southeast. Current temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. That's 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis indicates mostly cloudy with a 70% or a high chance of showers today. According to the Met Office, tonight will be mostly cloudy with a 60% or a moderate chance of showers and a 40% or a moderate chance of thunderstorms, mainly after midnight. Sunset today will be at 5:48 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:04 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.